Welcome to Future Ready with Bechtle, the podcast where we explore the technologies, ideas and strategies that are shaping tomorrow's workplace. Each episode we'll bring together thought leaders, innovators and industry experts from within Bechtle to discuss how organisations can adapt, grow and thrive in a world defined by constant change. From AI to cloud, cybersecurity and sustainability and on to the modern workplace, we'll help you cut through the noise and get future ready.
Hello and welcome to the Future Ready podcast with Bechtle. Today I'm joined by Kaylie Watts, pre-sales security consultant, and we're going to be talking about the cost of a cyber breach and what this means to the board and really what they need to understand. So, Kaylie, in light of recent attacks, specifically in the retail sector, can you tell us a little bit about how no industry is immune?
Yeah, so especially with the attacks on Marks and Sparks, Co-op, Harrods, Victoria's Secrets, that shows that hackers aren't just targeting critical infrastructure and financial sectors. These are high-profile brands with substantial security budgets. And the breach started with something simple, a phone call to the help desk impersonating a member of staff. They're armed with basic details such as staff names or staff IDs, and they managed to gain access that way. On top of that, once in, they were able to get onto systems that didn't have key monitoring in place, such as VMware, and create fake virtual machines, matching those of the real virtual machines, meaning they were able to stay hidden. So this shows that it's not just software vulnerabilities, it's weak gaps in processes and also internal visibility and the assumptions of trust. The key lesson is identity is everything. It's not just about organisations trying to protect their data, it's about protecting their identity as well. An interesting fact also is that half of UK businesses have experienced a cyber breach in the past year. So that's like every other company. It's extreme.
And you mentioned identity there, but what real key lesson do you think organisations should be taking specifically from that sort of attack at that level?
Yeah, so definitely improve help desk processes, strict enforcement policies on MFA.
So in light of that, why do you feel that cybersecurity should now be treated as a board level responsibility rather than just an IT issue?
Yeah, it's a good question. Cyber risk affects all areas of the business, whether it be financial, compliance, operational continuity. It's a core business risk as opposed to a technical issue. And on top of that, boards should take it as a responsibility to bring to their board meetings and in their response planning.
And how do you think that leadership should be structured to support with that?
Definitely by being included in the response planning, but also once they take on risk-based decisions, that then becomes a strategic security conversation. Another interesting stat is 44 billion costs of cyber attacks in the past 5 years. So that's huge.
So at Bechtle, we support customers of all sizes, all sectors with cybersecurity. What do you feel the real implications are of a breach, specifically for a medium-sized organisation, maybe financially, operationally, legally?
Yeah, that's a really good question because on average, a breach can cost £3.8 million, which is like the cost of a luxurious house, one that I can only dream of affording. On top of that, it's estimated that it's £4,000 per minute, which an hour downtime would be like 250 grand. So it's a lot at stake. Operationally, your teams are just naturally pulled off their normal day jobs to help contain and recover from that breach, whether it be like restoring the systems, dealing with the legal implications, talking to the media, laying out comms as well to their clients.
What are some prevalent misconceptions that boards may hold about cybersecurity, such as the limits of cyber insurance, the difference between compliance and real security?
Yes, that's interesting. I think one of the misconceptions that clients have is that compliance makes you automatically secure. Now, there are some strict rules with compliance, certain checks that they need to adhere to frameworks, but all it takes is for a hacker to find a gap to exploit. On top of that, I think the same applies to cyber insurance. Some clients see it as like a tick boxing exercise, and it doesn't necessarily mean that their systems are up to date. The same applies to cyber insurance. organisations can see it as a tick boxing exercise, but it's not just about that. Because, for example, if a client hasn't updated their systems or they're not following their processes and procedures, especially if they have to make a claim, the cyber insurance can still reject that claim.
So where do you feel that the responsibility really lies? Do you think that that is with the leadership team?
I would think it does sit with the leadership team. It's as we said earlier, it's a business risk, not just a technical issue. And if a company does experience phishing or password reuse, that means that that's all it takes to get in. So it's important that the people are trained on their processes and awareness training and all the good stuff.
So, in light of the leadership teams needing to take responsibility of this, what immediate and practical actions can leadership teams take to significantly strengthen their cybersecurity strategy?
Definitely creating an incident response plan. If you don't have one, create one. Ensure all the key stakeholders are involved and that they run tabletop simulations of that, because you don't want the first time that you go through it to be an actual breach. So this is key. Practice made up scenarios as much as possible with all the relevant people involved. Ensure that process is as smooth as it can be, so that when that day comes, because it's not about if, it's when that day comes, that they are best prepared to go through a real incident.
And we mentioned identity earlier being a key part of some of the recent hacks. So how do you feel that this should be also thought of?
Yes, definitely. I know I'm going to keep banging the drum in this, but making sure MFA is enabled across everybody. On top of that, tightening the admin access, limiting that access to people that need it and ensuring that they can only access what they need to do their day roles. On top of that, adhering to the help desk checks, as we mentioned before, with the impersonation. It's so easily done. So companies need to firm up on their more stricter controls as to how they identify someone when they are doing those password resets, considering it's the most simple way to get into a system.
And a lot of that falls down to policy and procedure, right?
Yes, definitely. Ensuring that your policies and procedures are up to date, and also that everyone is aware of the changes as well, and relevant awareness training for employees. So another key thing to invest in would be detection and response tools, although not necessarily preventative. In the cases, like we said earlier, when that time does come, that you can contain it quickly and recover from it quickly. And it has less impact in having those tools. It's an additional layer of protection. On top of that, I would also say about embedding security culture into your business. You don't want your employees to feel like when they have accidentally clicked on that phishing link that they're too scared to admit their mistake. So you want them to be able to come forward and not feel so bad about doing that. It's more about how we can build that security culture into our businesses.
And with the mention of MDR, managed detection and response, being quite a big buzzword in the market, a lot of these attacks don't happen in business hours. So do you feel that the MDR is the answer?
It's only part of the answer. If you have people behind the technology on how to use it, what to spot, so whether you have analysts actively looking through those logs.
So how do you feel that a breach can affect customer trust and brand loyalty?
Yeah, it's a good question, because when customers are using organisations, they expect their data, their personal data, to be secure and protected. They assume that companies will have the right protections in place to protect their data. And if a company is attacked and they deal with the aftermath of the breach, of the communications to the customers are looking for that transparency and honesty, clear communication, ensuring that the company has been honest about what they're doing about the breach. If there's no communication or, just complete silence or confusion, that then makes the customer question, well, what are they doing about this and what are they doing about my data? And ultimately lose the customer trust, and customers will probably leave the client and go to a different client.
So on that basis, what do you feel that cybersecurity really plays as a role in protecting long-term customer relationships?
Yeah, it's also about brand protection as well. For customers, it's no longer about price or convenience. It's about feeling secure. Cyber resilience is an integral part of the customer experience.
So we've talked a lot about the cost of a cyber attack, but how do you feel that organisations should balance operational change with technology investments, and how do they truly create what we would class as a secure environment?
Yeah, so technology is only part of the answer. It's essential, but without the people knowing the right processes and how to use the technology behind it, it's not going to achieve much. For example, you can invest in all the top tier security controls, but if your help desk resets that MFA password without strict checks, then it's kind of irrelevant. Technology is only part of the answer. Although it's essential, without the people knowing the processes and the technology behind it, it's kind of irrelevant. You can invest all the money in the world for top tier security controls, but if your help desk member is going to reset that password without strict identification in place, then they're already in then, and that's exactly with the likes of the Marks and Sparks attack that we've mentioned today. A balanced approach is aligning your security with the organisation, whether it be starter and leaver processes, ensuring that once a member of staff leaves, that their account is disabled straight away. It's all about building security from the ground up in the business and not adding it as a bolt-on.
And you mentioned about joiners and leavers process there. How can organisations ensure that they use certain security processes and follow policy by onboarding staff with things like security awareness training?
Yeah, so it should ultimately start with the people. So having employee awareness training so that they can spot the signs when it comes to clicking on a phishing link, as an example.
So can you tell me what you mean by starting security from the ground up?
Yeah, so it should ultimately start with the people in the organisation. We've talked about technology. They are additional layers of security, but it's important that people do have that security awareness training so that they can spot signs on phishing links, as an example. Ultimately, it's a combination of all three, so people, process, technology.
So what regulatory requirements are emerging in the industry, and how can organisations proactively adapt to stay ahead of compliance and enforcement trends?
Yes, regulations are becoming increasingly stringent in the UK and Europe, particularly with the NIS2 directive. It's a new significant regulation, tighter controls to this regulation. It applies to 18 sectors, so it's very new. So organisations should definitely be trying to read up on that, see if it applies to them. So they are bringing in fines for poorer data protection. That's becoming more visible. Organisations are expected to demonstrate that they are actively managing those risks. On top of this, there's like a growing pressure on the ransom payments. So they're trying to enforce making ransom payments illegal. So watch this space for those watching, because it isn't illegal yet. I would personally recommend to not pay them, but I know some organisations have. But in the future, they could face potential fines for paying ransoms.
You made an interesting point there that you wouldn't pay the ransom. Can you just elaborate a little bit more on that?
Yeah, personally, these are my reasons, and people may not agree out there, but my reasons would be they could ask for more money once you've paid that and still not give you your data back, or they do give your data back, but they've still leaked that data on the dark web and forums like that.
So really, customers can't win in that scenario?
They can't win. They may feel happy that they've got their data back, but then who's to say that other people haven't got access to their intellectual property?
So we're coming to the end of the podcast now, and I just want to end on one final question. What do you feel that the potential legal and personal liabilities are for board members and executives in the event of a breach? And finally, how can they ensure that they're adequately protected and informed?
Executive and board members are being increasingly held accountable for when a cyber breach occurs. Directors can face personal liability if they fail to fulfil their duties of responsibility and care against the Companies Act 2006 and the UK GDPR. And that can also result to disqualification as well. So if they choose to not act on what's going on, they can be disqualified from their role. Even if the breach is highly sophisticated, the response is where leadership can make or break an outcome. Yes, so cybersecurity should be a main topic at board meetings and including the response planning like we mentioned earlier. So we're not expecting boards to have all the technical knowledge, but as it's a risk area, this is why it's key to be mentioned in regular board meetings.
One of the things that we haven't really touched on is some of the services that Bechtle can support customers with. Would you just be able to tell us a little bit about the security strategy workshop that we're currently supporting customers with on a daily basis?
Yes, definitely. So we can help clients of any industry, any size. They can come to us about their strategy, even if they don't have a security strategy in place. That's what Bechtle can help with. So we can help them look at their long-term goals or even short and medium-term goals, looking at their current challenges and concerns and providing actionable solutions. So looking at where they want to get to and help them on that journey.
So that brings us to the end of the podcast. Thank you for joining us, Kaylie. To finish, if customers have any questions or they want to talk to you about any market insight or anything that they've heard today on the podcast, where can they find you?
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's been good talking about it, and such an important topic. Hopefully everyone enjoyed listening in and watching this podcast. You can reach me on LinkedIn. Kaylie Watts is the name to search on LinkedIn, or Bechtle. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. Please make sure to follow us on whatever platform you prefer, and we look forward to seeing you on the next one.